Hi, everybody, and welcome back to The Parent Solution. This is episode 10, and it marks a pretty special one. From here on out, every fifth episode is going to be a Q&A sort of style, where I answer direct questions pertaining to the education field, of course, that I get asked from listeners. So today we're jumping right in because I have lots planned. This past week, I had a direct question from a podcast listener who reached out to me through email, actually. Now, this reader is a parent, and they wanted to know what types of things they could do at home to encourage their child to develop their own interests and hobbies if the said child wasn't particularly interested in learning. Being that they, of course, I'm sure like many other parents, would like their child to live a fulfilled and a purposeful life, whatever that might look like. I have no doubt that this question is one that pops up pretty often in parents' minds. So I sat down and I brainstormed some ideas. I always have lots of ideas, but I wanted to put together a concise list of quality suggestions and kind of guidelines for this parent and for the others out there who may be wondering the same thing. So that's the topic of today's episode and today's podcast. I wanted to chat with you guys about some guidelines and some suggestions that I have in order to try to guide your child into what the best road is for them and what to do to get them there. First and foremost would be to ease off on the pressure. Now, therein lies the problem. We as a society have created this construct, this idea that learning has to be rigid, it has to be structured, it has to be uniform, and it always has to have, everything has to have a stated purpose, everything has to have an overall objective, everything has to have a final destination, a learning goal. This in itself is a fundamental principle that I wholeheartedly disagree with, but that's another podcast for the future. For right now, suffice it to say that pressuring your child, you're not going anywhere fast. The age-old question, I'm guilty of asking this. I used to be so guilty of asking this when I was younger. What do you want to be when you grow up? When you ask that to a child, it can be so harmful to their psyche when there are expectations attached to that. And there's lots of psychological reasons behind that. There's lots of research behind why it is that way. Personally, I like asking more open-ended questions and more creative questions to my students instead. So some suggestions of some questions to ask instead, because this is the parent solution and I want to provide you guys with some concrete things you can do. First kind of thing I like to ask, what kinds of problems do you want to solve when you're older? So instead of focusing on the thing that they want to do, your child's now focused on what their brain sees as a problem to be solved. This, of course, is a high interest level if they are interested enough in said problem. Now that interest is there, you just have to find it and get it out of them. Another question I like to ask, where do you think you might like to live as a grown-up? Now, living expenses are a thing, as we all know. And certain places and certain lifestyles can cost more than others, and they do cost more than others. There's no wrong answer to this one, as there is no wrong answer to any of these questions. But the answer to this question definitely provides insight into what kind of career choice needs to be made. It's a much different lifestyle living in LA than it is living in Texas on a farm. It's a much different lifestyle living in Japan, let's say, than it is to live in Brazil. There's different qualifications and different cost to that kind of lifestyle and to that kind of choice. Like I said, there's no wrong answer, but it is going to provide insight into what career choice needs to be made. Another one, do you think a lot of people like what they do for work? Is that important to you? Now, this one, I will say, please impress upon your child that it is important that they like what they do, that they love what they do. Because no matter what career or business path your child chooses, they have the right and they have the privilege to enjoy what they're doing, regardless of the monetary compensation that they are receiving for it. What do you enjoy doing now that you think you'll still like doing as a teenager? As an adult? The key here is to discover what that is. And you want something, as their parent, you want something that they're focused on with passion, like pure passion. That is the secret here. The old saying that it holds true. If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Your job as a parent is to help your child discover what that is, what they love to do. You honestly can't give them a better gift. Do you like working in groups, or do you prefer working alone? Not everyone is cut out for the corporate world, for being a business owner, for working a 9-to-5, or for working for an NGO. There's so many choices in the working world, and this question should open up a whole discussion about personality and the working skills that each career choice entails. Again, there's no wrong answer here, but it is going to provide insight into what career choice your child is going to have to make. These sorts of questions they give your child a much wider array of personal choice. They allow them to recognize their own autonomy within their own life, and they encourage them to think about their choices, their life, and the kinds of decisions they will be making in the future. There's so much more creative and so much more critical thinking involved with these sorts of questions than there is with, what do you want to be when you grow up? My second suggestion, if you're struggling with your child to try to guide them into the right direction, would be to play games with them. Now, I know, people always say, what, games? How does that teach them anything? That's not teaching my kid anything. All they're doing is goofing off. As an educator, I will say there is an abundance of research out there that states exactly the opposite of what you might initially think. It's a concept that's called play-based learning, and it's mostly advocated for in younger grades or in preschool-age children. But I will say this from my own experience, regardless of your child's age, playing games, whether it's board games like Monopoly, outdoor or physical movement games like Manhunt, puzzles like Scrabble, critical thinking games like chess, or a variety of online games from various websites, all of those things are a great way to get a child's mind going for using their God-given creativity to find solutions to problems and achieve better results or find an original way of doing something. Or, you know what? Just to be, to just exist, to simply enjoy life as a carefree child, as they should. The advantage with playing games is that it doesn't feel like learning to your child. That means that the initial resistance for the parents who have more stubborn children, how many times have you heard, I don't want to do school? That resistance is gone. How's your child going to say no to a game? And if you give them a choice as to what game they want to play, how are they going to say no to that? My third suggestion would be to explore with them. This one should go without saying. You have to do things with your kids. Sure, they should have their own alone time. That's going to increase as they age. They're going to want their own space to do activities and stuff with their friends. But they also should be able to spend time with you as their parent, doing something of value. Now, I've talked about this on a previous podcast. I believe it was podcast number 3. Oftentimes, your child's best memories are going to come from something that they've done with you. One of my fondest memories in my childhood is making pancakes with my dad from scratch. There's no premix, no batter with added water, no taking something out of the box and putting milk in it, none of the processed stuff. We made them from scratch, eggs, flour, and baking soda, except that one time that we put baking powder in and they turned pink on the inside. We all still ate them anyway. And I remember my brother complaining that they tasted odd, but we all ate them anyway, and then we lived to tell the tale. My point here is that that's one of the best childhood memories I have, pink pancakes. And it has, in a very real way, come full circle with my own cooking adventures as an adult now. So my point with this one is to get your children out of their comfort zones. It doesn't have to be out of the house if that isn't doable for your situation, but get them out of their comfort zones and learning new skills with you. Cooking, working out, cleaning, walking the dogs, or playing with the cat, or doing something with an animal. Puzzles, board games, writing activities. Involve them in your life and in your routine. Teach them how to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's a skill that will serve them well no matter what career, what business, or what kind of job they have when they're older. I have a few other suggestions that I'd like to put forward, but I think that just about covers it for today, for this episode. So I'm going to wrap it up, and we'll continue on the same path next week. Because I want to talk a little bit more about the psychological side of things when it comes to fostering your child's learning capabilities. Thanks, guys, for listening. I appreciate you all. Remember that new episodes premiere every Tuesday at 5 a.m. on Spreaker. This is The Parent Solution. Remember, this is your one-stop shop for all things educational.